Welcome.
Hi.
Hi. Let me change that a little bit. Okay. So this is a class on polymer clay, and I'd like to, let's see. I want to show you this board. Can you see the board from here?
Not really.
No.
We can see your desk, your table.
Oh. Okay. Yeah. So it's just a little like an agenda because I think that helps me keep on track and it helps all of us know what's coming. Sometimes it helps to answer any questions ahead of time so we can just focus on learning about the clay. The first thing is we're going to do introductions and a little housekeeping, just a couple of little things. And we'll take about 5 minutes to do that. So we each get about a minute. And then we're going to talk about the tools and materials that you can use. And then we'll talk about some major points about the polymer clay that I want to share before we get started, so you have an idea what to expect. And then we'll take a planned 5-minute break in case there's something that you have forgotten to get or something that you think didn't know you wanted or need a glass of water or whatever. So we'll have a 5-minute break. And then as we go forward, of course, if you need to step away, that's okay. We're just going to keep going. So sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay. And if at any time you have a question about something I've said, please just ask about it. And I taught a class last week and I watched the video and I think I talked a little bit fast, so I'm going to try to slow down my voice, just so that everybody can hear me better. So I'll start with introductions. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about myself, and then we'll go to James, then Jerry, then Mary, and then Elsa and Friend. Or is Elsa? Are you Elsa? Which one's Elsa? Oh, there's 3 friends. That's fun.
And I have
Okay.
on as Elsa from my daughter's.
Great. Perfect. Okay. Welcome. Okay. So I'm Janet Velarde Loubet. I am a carpentry native since I was 4 years old. And so grew up here, went to school here, moved away for a little bit, but came back. And I have 2 children. I raised them both here. One is a daughter. She's 31. She lives in Alaska and has 3 grandbabies. I have 3 grandbabies. And my son is 21 and he lives here with us. He's also an artist, and I wish he would have joined us. He's a fun guy, but anyways, he didn't. What else? I've made jewelry since I was 6 years old. And I have gone through lots of changes with the things that I make. It's always changing, and I use new materials, or I go back to old materials and I do something new with them. And when the quarantine started back in March, I found a bag of polymer clay that I have had for 20 years. And I just had a little bit in the bag, and I thought I'm just going to pull it out and do something with it. I hadn't really worked with it very much, really at all. And so as I started playing around with it and experimenting, I ordered more. And I really do feel like working with the polymer clay during this time has saved me. It has been an incredible learning experience, an incredible creative experience, and it has kept my hands busy. And so I'm super grateful to the polymer clay because I really do feel like it just saved me through this time. So I'm excited to share what I know. And if any of you have already worked with it and you have something that you want to say, please, let's make it collaborative. That's how I like to learn. So, okay, who's next? That's it for me. James?
Hi, well, my name is James and I'm from Australia. I just came to join in because a friend recommended me to come join and do some polymer clay work because I've done some work before, but I have not really gone for the basics. I've only done some tidbits. And so now I'm just trying to pick up more hobbies, more art things because it just helps me to, before I used to have a thing with perfectionism and just trying out something new and not having such high um, like expectations to be instantly perfectly at something just helps me to center myself. I'm hoping that polymer clay just helps me to balance things out. I've done a bit of miniature painting and diorama making, but clay work sounds also fun as well. That's me.
That's awesome. Welcome from far, far away.
Thank you.
How about you, Jerry?
I'm Jerry Campopiano, and I have no experience in clay, but I always love all the things that Janet does, and so I wanted to take your class, and I'm anxious to learn about it. And it's fun to have hobbies during this time. It's nice to be able to do things like this at home when you can't do anything else.
You're right.
And that's it.
Okay, thanks for joining us, Jerry. I'm happy to see your face.
I have done some work in clay. I mostly paint and write poetry, but I took a couple of ceramics courses. What I enjoyed doing the product, but I had trouble with the wheel, and I also didn't like pushing the air out of the clay. It seemed like a lot of work dealing with that. So I stopped that and continued with painting. But doing little balls sounds simple enough. You know, I don't know how is the regular clay and polymer clay different?
Well, pretty different. We'll talk about that a little bit when we let's go to Elsa first, and then we'll talk about that. I'm going to tell you just what I've learned about it and how I've seen it behave. And I have a little bit of experience with the wheel and working with regular clay too, so I can speak to that a little bit. And then when we dive in, you'll definitely see the difference. You'll feel it.
Okay.
But we'll talk a little bit about that after we hear from Elsa. Thanks, Mary. Welcome to have you here.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jenna. It was Elsa by accident.
Okay, Jenna. Hi, Jenna.
Hi. And we've been doing some air dry clay, and it's been so much fun. I felt like it was just so stress relieving. I just loved it. And I have 3 girls, and 2 of them have been doing the art classes online, which is such a blessing, and they've just loved it. I have 3 girls. I thought only one was going to do it, but they're all.
Yay! That's so fun.
How cute.
Say your name?
I'm Layla.
And maybe how old you are.
Hi.
I love it. Welcome.
Layla's 8. Who are you?
Kira and I am 6.
Welcome.
Kira's 6 and
I'm Isla and I'm 4.
4.
Wow, it's great to have you guys.
And I know it might be a little hard, so they're probably going to go play, but we're just going to see what happens with it.
Yeah, just have fun.
We'll learn a
Take
little.
what you can take and just have fun.
Yeah.
What type of polymer or what type of air dry clay have you been using, Jenna?
I don't know. It was just like a tan, and we would like press flowers and make little bowls, but they break really easily, you know, because it's not like a wheel and not baked.
I got a bowl.
Okay.
But it's been really fun. Like we
Yeah.
clean them and press different designs into them and
Experiment.
yeah.
Good. Okay, well, so we all know each other. We've all done our introductions. Tools and materials, let's talk about that. I'm just going to show you what I have. Doesn't mean that you need to have it, but I'm going to just quickly explain what I use each tool for. And my tools, like, I'm not a real big fan of buying tools. I like to find stuff that I can use around the house, and I often do that. I see Gary in the background. Hi, Gary. Okay, so this is like a cheese grater, right?
Yes.
A real fine cheese grater. Sometimes I use this when I want to put something, when I would want to add something to my clay, like, and I'm going to talk about the different things that you can add or that I have added and haven't had trouble with. I add sometimes, if I want to make my own colors, I will add some pastel. I'll just grate the pastel on here into like a little tiny bowl I've made of softened clay and then work it in. And that's a fun way to get some color, you know, a custom color. I have my handy blade. I have this long blade. I use that for slicing. When I've got a cane made, you'll see we're going to make a cane, and then you can slice it to make beads like this. So that's something sliced. It's very thin, and then it has I made a hole in the middle of it. So that's cut from a cane. Or this is made from a cane. They're little slices that I used to slice with my slicer to slice and then baked and made into earrings. So that's my slicer. Does everybody have either a sharp knife or a slicer? Yeah. If you don't want to talk, you can always do thumbs up for yes. That's okay with me. But so you need something to be able to cut once we make the cane. I always have a piece of very fine sandpaper. That is what I use sometimes after I've baked the clay, if there's a little rough spot or if I want it to look a little more matte, not so shiny. So this isn't necessary, but I do always have it around. I have a roller. So this was the roller that I had when I first started, and it's actually a fondant frosting roller, like for cake frosting. But it's what I had, so that's what I used, and it worked just fine. And then when I bought some more clay, I got some rollers with the clay that I bought. So this one's solid all the way through, and it's acrylic. This one's acrylic too, but it's hollow. I prefer the heavier one. I think it's easier to use, but this could be great for kids because it's kind of light. So that's when we want to roll the clay and make it flat like this. And I have one of these. This is an extruder. I really don't use it very often, but I do love to follow people on Instagram that do polymer clay. Everybody's work is so different. It's incredible how you can take clay like this. Everybody gets the same thing, right? And it all turns out incredibly different. So a lot of people use these extruders, and they have little plates to make shapes. Like there's a heart, and there's like a little small spaghetti string that you can make once you soften the clay. You put the clay inside here, and you press this through like that, or the other way. Sorry, this comes off and it presses through, and you extrude it for shapes. I find that I don't use it very often. I really like to make the shapes with my hands, and I think partially it's because I tend to be a little bit more free-form and a little bit more organic. There are people that like draw out crazy geometric mathematical shapes, and then they use their extruders to make the canes. I haven't found myself to do that. I like to just use my hands. But they are kind of fun if you have a specific thing you want to make with those. And then there's these. These just kind of came with, I didn't order them specifically, but they came with some of the clay that I ordered. I also have an old file just because I like the shape of it. It's triangle, and sometimes I'll make a triangle hole. If I want to make a bead with a triangle bigger hole, I have an old awl needle that I use sometimes to make holes. And I also have this. This is just a bead reamer, but I use it to make the holes when I get my beads finished. I also have a cutting board here. It's like a rubber cutting board because when I'm using the sharp razor to slice, this is like a self-healing material. It's kind of a rubbery material. But when I first started, I didn't use it. I think I used just a regular cutting board. But I found that cutting boards can be a little bit porous. And so then you get that texture in the clay. And if you want the clay to be smooth, you want to use a smooth surface to work on. Plastic bags or a piece of plastic is great because when you're rolling the clay, it would stick to this. If you roll too hard or too thin, it'll stick. So if you put it on a piece of plastic or parchment paper, you can peel it off very easily once you've rolled it out into a thin piece. It peels off great. And I'll show you that too. Different brands of polymer clay. There's lots of different brands. There's Fimo. There's Fimo Professional. There's Kato clay, and there's Sculpey. There are other brands, and I've used a couple of the other brands. When I first started, I read that you're not supposed to mix them. I've mixed everything, and my stuff's come out fine. I'm usually a rule follower, but in that moment, I thought, forget it. I'm just going to mix everything together, and I haven't had a problem with it. So I often do that. What else? Oh, I did buy one of these. Can you see this? This is a roller. It's like a pasta roller. And it makes the clay, it rolls it for you very easily, but I still often use my hand roller just because I like the organicness of it, but I do also use that sometimes when I want to make something, it makes everything the same thickness, and there's different numbers for the dial. You can make it thick or thin or in between. So I think that's it for the tools. Okay, let's talk about the clay. Let's touch the clay. So I'm going to grab this one. I have rolled this into just like a snake, a small, not too wide, thick snake. But when you first open up your clay, do you have your clay open already, or do you need to open it? Let's open it up. And I usually use my blade. I just kind of go through the little plastic thing and slice it. It works. It's like a razor blade, so you have to be really careful. But that's a good way to open it. And I like to keep as much as I can in the plastic because it does attract dust. The clay can attract dust. So if I'm not going to keep it in the plastic package, I'm going to put it in a Ziploc bag, or I'm going to wrap it in parchment paper to keep it clean. And you can see that there's segments. Those are not always the same. Like for this brand, they're always the same. But if you're going to mix another brand, it's a different shape. And I've never worried about having things perfectly match, but some polymer artists go as far as weighing everything to make sure that they've got the same, ratio. But they're like a measuring mark. So if you want to do your first piece, you can just cut a section off at that line that's on there. And you just press straight down. Maybe somebody's getting married. Sorry about that. And depending on the brand that you have, it can be really hard. If it's hard, this one's not too hard. But if it's hard, what I have found is there's some tensile strength with this clay. If you try to squish it down, it won't really budge. So what I've learned is if you take it between your thumb and your forefinger like this, and you just kind of wiggle it, and then turn it and wiggle it some more, that loosens it up a little bit. It's kind of a polymer clay hack. Just because I got so frustrated trying to get it soft, that I found if you just kind of do that little jiggle with it in different areas, it's almost like it just wakes it up. And that one worked pretty fast. It wasn't too hard, but I have had clay that's really, really hard, and it takes some work. And that's another thing that this clay has taught me. You have to be a little bit patient about it because there's some work involved. And when you're talking about the ceramic clay, sometimes there are bubbles in the clay, but it's usually when you're joining two clays together. It's like a little air bubble will get trapped in that when you're joining it. So that's an air bubble thing, but it's different than trying to move all of the air bubbles out of a ceramic clay. But when we make the cane, I almost can guarantee that there'll be some bubbles, and I'll show you what I do to take them out. Everybody got their clay out? Yeah, are you working it? Is it getting softer? Okay.
Yeah, it is. It's depending on the brand, I heard as well, can change the density and the hardness of it. Like I heard Sculpey Professional is really hard to knead, and that you need an actual machine to to flatten it out because it's that tough.
The pasta roller, right? To condition it. Yeah. I have noticed that, I mean, the pasta roller works for that reason, but I'll show you. One of the first things I did when I tried to do the pasta roller, when I first got it, was I was trying to mix some clay together, and one of the clays was not quite as hard as the other, and so it gave me this marbling effect, which turned out beautiful.
It is.
But it was a difference, right? One of the clays was not as hard as the other, and so they behave differently when they're not the same consistency, and you just have to be aware of that. And what I should have done if I wanted these to be blended was to work them both equally till they were equally soft. But I love the way it turned out, so I kept it. But is anybody's clay super duper hard, or is it coming along? Coming along? Okay. So you're going to need another color. Once you've finished conditioning that first piece of clay, just set it aside. You don't have to make a shape with it yet, and get another piece of clay in a different color. I chose this kind of green apple green, and then this dark blue that has a little bit of glitter in it. This clay came this way with that effect. Excuse me. But you can add glitter. I've added glitter to my clay before. I've added watercolor paint to my clay. I've added acrylic paint. I've added food coloring, and all of those things work in this clay. I would not add oil paint because it's not an oil base, and I just don't think it would work, but there's a lot of other things you can add to give it effect.
Acrylic paint.
What about the acrylic paint?
Can you add that just like watercolor?
Yes, just straight out of the tube. And not very much, because I usually only work with a piece of clay about this big. And so just a little bit, and I work it in, and then if I want to add more, I add more. And it does change a little tiny bit. It changes the texture of the clay, but it never has affected the clay when I work with it in a negative way. And it's never affected it negatively when I bake it. So you can mix custom colors that way, which is really fun. You can do marbling and stuff like that. So with the second piece of clay, you're going to condition it, right? Jiggle it, move it around, condition it. And I want you to roll just like this. I usually make a ball first. I'll do that. I'll make this a ball again. So just a round ball. And then just use pressure from your fingers. And I like to move my hand down the cane, down the snake, just so that I can make sure it's the same thickness, because we're going to put this on the inside of a cane. We're going to make a simple bull's eye cane first. It'll look like a target, and you can use that as is, or I'll show you other ways you can use it in making a cane. But the other thing that's great about these boards is that there is a measurement device here, and there's squares here for measurement. And so oftentimes I'll line up my little rolled snake against a line and just kind of make sure that it is the same thickness all the way through. Then you have the consistency in the cane. So when you've done your snake, give me a thumbs up so I know we can go on to the next thing.
My clay is a bit crumbly. Have you had that issue? Yeah.
Okay.
I'm trying to condition it, but it's just a bit crumbly a bit.
One thing that I've done with crumbly clay is that let me take a piece of another one. I probably have a crumbly clay here somewhere. Is I'll push down on it with my thumb, like flatten it out. And you have to put some elbow grease into it and then pick it up and fold it in half, and it'll probably break, right? It won't bend, it'll break. And do that again. Just the constant pressure of your thumb, flattening it out, really helps it to be conditioned. You might have to do that several times. Already I folded it and it was a little softer.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And let me know if that works.
No, it's already starting to be a little bit more smoother as well. That's
okay,
good.
just
needed a bit more. Sure thing.
And another thing I learned was I bought this product. It's made by Sculpey, and it's called a thinner and clay softener. And you know what it is? It's mineral oil. So baby oil does the same thing. Like any kind of mineral oil, you could use a little drop or two of that on a really hard clay and work it in. The only thing I don't like about that is that sometimes the color gets on your hand. Sometimes the color gets on your hand, and I don't like that. So, but if you really want it to be super soft and you're going to put it through an extruder, you'd want it to be that soft, and maybe you'd need to add some mineral oil to it or baby oil. How you doing? Who has their snake made? Oh, good. Okay, good. Mary, you said you don't have any clay, right? You're just listening?
I don't have any clay with me.
That's okay. I just want to make sure I don't ask you to see something if you don't have it. James is working hard. How are you girls doing? Jenna and Isla and can't remember the other names. Do you have your snake made, or are you making it?
We'll do it now. Yeah, we were
okay.
Behind.
No problem. Everybody likes to make snakes. Okay, so set your snake aside on over to the edge, and make sure you've got enough area to work, because if you're going to use a roller, what is everybody using for their roller? Does everybody have something like this? Okay. Oh, good. Okay. Okay. So, Jerry, is that glass? Yeah. Okay. So just make sure your clay's pretty soft, because you're going to roll it with that. But I actually put this piece through the pasta machine. So I'm going to get another piece. I'm going to use this red piece, and I'm going to roll it. And sometimes that clay will roll up on itself, like mine just did that. And I really need a piece of plastic. Okay. If it rolls up on itself, just hold it with one hand. Hold it down with one hand on one end and just continue the roll all the way up. And I like to always keep the pressure of the roller in the middle because that seems to distribute evenly throughout the whole piece of clay so that you don't have one side a lot thicker than the other. And this is what I mean by the plastic and the clay coming off easily. You just kind of peel it off like that and it's fine. Because it's really not fun when it sticks to something and you can't get it off. Okay, I'm gonna move forward on this and then you guys can do the step. So here's the clay. Is that better? You see better? Okay, here's the flat piece of clay. Here's my snake. I'm gonna put the snake, I'm gonna find the place where the snake fits the best because my piece isn't perfectly round. And I'm just gonna lay it straight onto the piece like that. Before I start rolling, I'm gonna take my blade and I'm gonna trim off the ends because that area at the top wasn't as wide as the rest of this area and I want the whole snake to be covered by the roll of clay. So it's okay to trim off some. And then I always save my trim and I always separate the clay. Like I had a little piece of the snake and some of the red. So I always separate the clay in the moment because it's just harder to do later. And we can reuse that clay. So now that the ends have been trimmed and my snake's not very thick. So I'm gonna cut, let's see if I can do this better. I'm gonna cut about the same thickness of the snake away. Do you see that? Here's the snake. I'm using the thickness of the snake as a guide and I'm gonna cut the clay with about that much, like that. And then I'm gonna fold that piece up. And I like to start at the ends because the ends, it stretches sometimes and I like the ends to be clean. And so I start at the end and then I kind of work my way with my finger to join that flat clay to the snake, like that. The best way to get to know the clay is to play with it. So there's a lot of trial and error. And if it's not a perfect roll up, it's still going to be okay. And so don't get hung up on it having to be perfect because it really doesn't have to be perfect to turn out beautiful. So after I do that, can you see okay on this part right here? Yes, okay. So you can see that the line of the clay, the flat clay, the red clay is here. And I'm gonna just roll it, rotate it forward just till that piece touches itself again. And then I'm gonna pull it back and there'll be a little indentation on the clay. And that's my indicator of where I wanna cut it to match it up for coverage. And then I'm just going to cut it again, pressing down equally through with the whole blade. And I've got it like that. And I'm just going to carefully join that clay together. So I've joined it and then I'll give it a quick little roll, just a really light little roll to help if there's any air bubbles or blind spots, or it'll join that seam And that's a little simple bullseye cane. So it's got the snake in the middle, covered with another color of clay. And sometimes, like this one looks pretty good. Mine don't always turn out like that. Sometimes I have a little bit extra and it's a little bit thicker. And I just kind of let that go and know that there's going to be a couple of the pieces that I slice that are going to be a little different. And I'm okay with that. But this one turned out pretty symmetrical. So when you finish that part, hold it up so I can see that you have finished.
I know tomorrow you're going to be with Jim and then we'll be together Monday. Or
what's the inside color of yours, Jerry? White?
White.
Okay, cool.
It's in the morning, so.
Jenna, what color did you use? Is that blue, light blue?
We can't go to much.
It's a darker color on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
I can see that. Yeah. Okay. Okay. James, what did you do? Oh yeah, orange and
Orange
blue.
and blue.
Yeah,
Yep.
fun. Nice combo. Okay, so let's move on. So this is a simple target cane. Okay, let's make another one. Not a target, not a bullseye cane. Let's make another cane. So get another piece of clay and let's condition it. If you've got leftover from what we just did, like your flat piece, you can use that because it's already conditioned, or you can get another color. I don't know how many colors you've got, but I'm going to recondition it. Make sure it's soft enough to roll.
Oh, okay. That I still love.
I do, with my rollers, I do notice that, especially this one gets a lot of residue on it when I roll. So I always want to have, a dry rag. Doesn't have to be wet. And I like to just use that. It's a rag that probably you'll never wash. Like I've got several of these. I don't wash them because the clay's not baked. It's just in the grooves of the fabric. But I like to wipe off my roller, especially if I'm changing colors, because I don't want to get specks of one color in another piece of the clay. Okay, let's see. I'm going to show you the next cane we're going to make is a spiral cane. But take a look at this. This is a bullseye cane that has two outer layers. So you can get as complicated as you want. If you wanted to continue to cover that bullseye cane with other layers, you can make as many layers as you like. And that's kind of fun too. But now we're going to do a spiral. Let me find my spiral cane. Okay. This is the one we're going to do next. So this one has 3 colors, but we don't have, let's just use, well, I'll probably use 3 colors. You can do it with 2, but it's a little more fun to use 3. So you're going to want 3 colors or 2 if you just want 2. We're going to roll them out all flat like this. And they don't have to be the same thickness, but they don't have to be. But if you want them to be, it'll be a little bit more uniform. I kind of like them when they're not uniform, but that's just my style. And I wouldn't worry too much about having them be exactly the same amount of clay, because we're going to end up trimming off the edges and making it a square anyway. So if they're close, that's okay. Also too, with the plastic bag or a piece of plastic, I scrub off the plastic too, because if I've rolled a color, like there's a lot of color here, but it's on the inside of the bag, but I want that piece of plastic to be clean when I roll a different color. We didn't take our planned break. So if anybody needs to take a break, just do it. I got too excited and I kept talking about the clay. Okay, one more color. The wind is howling at my house. Is it howling at your house?
It is howling at my house.
It's howling. We just need the internet till the class is over. Then the electricity can go off. Okay, I'm working on my third color. Are you guys doing okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, just conditioning my third color as well.
Okay. And one way to know that your clay is not conditioned well enough, I just experienced this, is I tried to roll. I thought it was soft enough. Tried to roll it and it broke. See that? So that's just my indicator that I need to get it a little bit softer. This is my third color, the hot pink or kind of deep magenta. I have a tiny piece of the glittery blue clay left from the last cane, and I'm going to just mix it in randomly because that's how I roll. You can do that too if you want to, but you don't have to. But I just felt like I didn't have quite enough, and I thought I'll just put in a little bit of that blue. That's why I like to save the scraps, because at any given moment, you're going to think I just need something else. And then you look at your scrap pile and there's the piece that you're looking for. Plus it's money. It's like trim loss, right? You're going to trim it off, but you don't want to throw it away. You want to use it. See. Everybody okay if I move forward, or you want me to wait? Move forward? Okay. So I've got the piece. My first piece is here. That's going to be the outside color. I'm going to do the pink next. And then I'll do the magenta that's got a little bit of the blue in there. I'm going to just layer them on top of each other. And as you can see, they're not the same size. I'm okay with that. And as you layer them, you want to kind of just try to, I should do that again. Let me show you what I do. I start at one end like this. And I lay it down kind of like you're laying down a piece of, what am I thinking of? Like, you just want to start at one end and kind of roll it down. That'll help with air bubbles. Because if you have an air bubble, then when you slice your cane, there's a little space where the clay hasn't connected, and you don't necessarily want that. So I'm going to just pat it gently with my finger, and I'll also put it on the plastic and just give it a real gentle little roll, just so I know that they're all connected and pretty close. Now, there's two ways you can do this. If you want to do it precision, you're going to cut all the trim so that you've got a rectangle with all the colors as the border. If you're not worried about precision, then I would probably just cut off this extra green like this. Let's see. And maybe a little bit of the green here. And a little bit here. If you wanted it to be all equal though, you'd want to trim up those edges so that you've got all three colors at each border cutting. Follow me? Yeah, okay. So now I have to decide which way I want to roll it. Do I want to roll it this way or do I want to roll it this way? If I roll it this way, mine's a rectangle. So if I roll it this way, it's going to be a little thicker, but shorter. And if I roll it this way, it's going to be a little thinner, but longer. So I'm going to roll it the longer way. So it's a little bit thinner, but a little bit longer. And I'm going to start on the edge here with my green, and I'm just going to fold it over. Not a roll, but more of a fold, and just gently tap it like that, and then just work that clay up and over. And then as I go, I always kind of pinch, just gentle little pinches, and use your forefinger and your thumb to just roll it all the way up. And what I've noticed is if you don't move your fingers up and down that roll, then the middle will end up pretty fat and the ends won't, they'll be thinner, and it's just nicer to do it as you're rolling. So you pinch and stretch if you need to, and shape. So that's the end. And it's not straight, as you can see. There's a little bit in the middle that's sticking out. I'm going to trim that off. I'm going to trim both ends so that it's all the colors are showing up. When I cut down the cane, I'm using equal pressure, and I place it very gently at first. Actually, before I even touch it, I'm just making sure that that's where I want to cut. And then I just press down gently to the end. Now, something to know about when you're working with your canes, if you've conditioned your clay a lot and it's really, really soft, then sometimes if you use your blade and you slice through that cane, it can change the inside design, right? It can drag some of that soft clay because it's almost compromised because it's so soft. So if you're working with your clay and you realize, gosh, it's really, really soft and it's really is like a snake, it's not like a cane, then what I do is I put it in the fridge. I put it in the fridge for like 10 minutes, and it just kind of hardens it up a bit so that when you go to slice it, you're going to be able to keep the integrity of the design inside. Does that make sense? And then after I trimmed off the ends, I'm just gently rolling it, and I'm using as many fingers as I can, this part of my hand, to roll. And I like to move my fingers back and forth. If you don't pay attention when you're rolling, you can get a really thin middle and fat ends. And we don't want that. We want it to be the same size all the way through. And I've noticed that just because I'm working with clay a lot, I can I can really feel where it's, even if it's just a tiny little millimeter off, I'll be able to feel it with my fingers. So that's my cane. That's a spiral. How long are your canes about? Oh, you've got a long one. Okay, good. We're gonna do something fun with that. How long is yours, James? About how many inches? A little one. Okay, that's fine too. That's good. Jerry?
4.5 inches.
4.5 inches. Okay. I guess mine is 3.5 inches. Okay, so let's use Jenna as an example of something you can do once you've made this cane. Is your cane soft, Jenna, or do you feel like if you cut it, do you think the clay will drag through, or do you think that it, how soft does it feel? Pretty soft? Okay.
I don't know. I have no idea.
Okay. So do me a favor. Do you have a blade to cut with, Jenna?
You know, I really just care when I show her. I really just have like this serrated knife or a butter knife.
Okay, probably the butter knife's better.
Oh, I have a sharp, straight edge knife. Sorry. Here.
Okay, that's better. Straight edge is better. And because we don't know about how soft your clay is, go to the end of your cane. Look where I'm at. Go to the end of your cane, but a little bit in. And sometimes I rotate. Do you see how I'm rotating?
Yeah.
You can rotate the cut, and that, if it's too soft, that'll help it keep its design on the inside. But try it on the end first before you have you cut. What?
How thick should or wide should the cut be?
I just took a little bit off.
Okay, like
not even 1/2 inch, maybe like 1/3 of an inch, or between 1/3 of an inch and 1/2. Just so you can see if the design keeps its integrity.
well, the end. I actually didn't trim the end like you said.
Okay, that's okay.
So maybe
So
I'll
cut
try
off
one more.
enough to show you the true design on the inside. You might have to cut a little bit more. And everybody can do that. Once you've got it rolled and you've got it to the desired thickness and it all looks like the seams are all together, then go ahead and take your straight edge or whatever you're using and just cut off a little bit at the end. And I like to rotate when the clay is a little softer. When it's hard, you don't have to rotate it. You can just slice straight through. But that gives you an indicator of the design inside. And then it's rolled to how you want it to look. Okay, Jenna, because your snake wins the award for being the longest, I would like for you to cut the snake in half. Okay, I'm going to cut mine in half too. And what we're going to do is put those snakes side by side. And so now we've got a different design, right? Now we've got two spirals side by side. And the cool thing about these canes is if you make big canes, and sometimes I make really big canes, you can continue to cut each piece in half. Like I'll do it with this one. It'll be small, but it'll still give you the effect. It's like multiplication. And you put those two together. So now you've got 4 pieces, right? But it almost looks like it could be a flower if you added something else to it. So that's just the beginning of they call it a complex cane. it's not a super complex cane because some of them are really, really complicated, but this is the way you do it. So you make your first cane, and then you trim the ends, and then you cut it in half, and you've got 2 pieces. If it's long enough, you cut it again in half, and then you've got 4 pieces together like this. Now you can see, I haven't really put mine together. I'm just holding them together, but there's a space in the middle. See that? So in that moment, before you join those 4 pieces together, if you wanted to, you could make another little snake, and you could place that snake in that groove. So I'm going to do that just so you can see what I mean. I'm going to take a little piece of another color of clay. You could use the green clay too if you wanted to. I always like to add more color, but I'm just going to make a snake, simple snake like that, and I'm going to lay that snake in the groove. Everybody see that? And I didn't press it in, I just laid it on there. And then I'm going to just trim that snake so he's the same size as the other canes. And then you can see there's a little red center. And if I take those other 2 pieces and I just line them up, and I gently, gently press. So this is the part that takes a lot of just patience, because you have to do a lot of touching, a lot of gentle pressing. You don't want to squeeze because you don't want to mess up the design on the inside. And so I just rotate. I rotate the piece like this and just gently squeeze. And oftentimes I feel like the end might be bulging out a little bit, and that is just what happens. But you can just take your fingers and press that down a little bit. You can also take the cane down on your mat and gently press like this. And you just continue to work it until you see that all the clay has been joined. James, did you do yours?
This is
It kind of looks like a sashimi. It didn't really
it's
spiral,
cool.
but
Yeah, that's really cool. I like the white in the middle. That's great contrast. I can't see it, Jerry. Hold it up.
where I don't know.
Oh yeah,
Is that
See?
okay?
you made a cane. Oh, Jenna, let's see yours.
But I have a question. My daughter has 3 equal pieces. Is there anything she can do with that? Or maybe
How many pieces?
She has 3 equal pieces.
Yes. Okay, so let me show you. Here's the bullseye that I made, the bullseye cane. I'm going to cut it into 3, and I'll show you what I do.
Okay.
Okay, 3 equal pieces. Watching? 1, 2. I've got 3 pieces. So same principle, you just put them together, and you've got the beginning of a cane. And the same principle, there's a little hole in the middle, right? You could fill that with the red if you wanted it to be like a solid cane, or you could put another color in there. So before you pinch them together, decide if you want the middle to be the same color as your outer covering or a different color. I'm going to choose a different color just because that's how I roll, but you can do however you like. It's a little more simple if you put the same color in the middle. I'm going to roll out a little snake just like this. And I'm going to line these 2 pieces up. They'll be the bottom. Line them up so that the ends match like this. and then lay that piece on there, whether it's the same color or not. You're going to make a snake. Press it in just a tiny, tiny bit. Pick it up gently and turn it over. Trim that snake so he's the same length as everybody else, right? And then with 3 pieces, you're going to press that third piece. You want to line it up at this end and at this end so that you've got a consistent design, and you're going to just press those guys together until they meet here and here, right? Because you had 2 that were kind of the base. So you press gently with your forefinger and your thumb. And then I always like to do this. I just kind of rotate it and press, and I move where my fingers touch so that they're touching all parts of the cane. And then you've got a tri 3-piece cane with a center in the middle. So one of the things that's cool about these little, just getting these going, is that you can leave them just like this, and you could slice them and make a bead out of that, or you can continue to build on this cane. So, excuse me, like, what I might do with this one, just to show you what you can do, is it's like this now. It's about 3/4 of an inch wide, maybe almost an inch in some areas. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pinch and pull, and that's called reducing. So you're reducing the cane's diameter by doing that, and therefore you're reducing the design inside. It'll be a little smaller, a little more delicate, and you just constantly have to remember that you've got to pinch and pull consistently around the whole cane. So sometimes I hold it like straight up and down like this, and I'll pinch and turn all the way down. Sometimes I hold it like this, and I pinch and turn from the middle, working out. Always from the middle, working out. So what'll happen is the ends will be distorted, and that's normal. There really isn't any way I haven't found a way to make that not happen. But when you get it to the desired thickness, right? I've pinched and pulled and reduced. Now it's almost 2 inches long instead of 3/4 of an inch long. And it's all kind of joined together. I'm going to put it back down here, and I'm going to roll it really gently. And I can feel that the ends are a little thicker, and I'm going to just get them the same thickness. They'll be a little distorted, but we're going to cut those off anyway. So the main thing is to just work it so that your cane is to your desired length, right? How small you want to make that design on the inside. And that actually, what determines that is what you want to do with the cane. If you want to just slice the cane and make it into beads, then any size works. If you want to use this cane to build onto another cane, then you wouldn't want to make the design inside too small, because when you build it on, add it to another cane, you're going to press and reduce again, right? So here's an example. Where's my cane? Okay, here's an example. This cane was made using 1, 2, 3, 4, like 6 different canes that I put together. And the designs, can you see it? Is it in focus? Okay. The designs just get smaller as you reduce and roll, right? The cane itself is pretty thick. It's like, I don't know, 1.5 inches thick. But the individual canes that made it into one cane, those designs got very small and delicate. So it depends on what you want to do with your cane. that'll determine how much you roll it. So I've reduced this the one that Jenna, you've got yours reduced. How big is yours? Pretty big. Yeah, like almost an inch, maybe. Okay.
I need to smooth the sides, right? So just pinch it so there's not a line.
You can pinch it. You can use your finger like this. It's pretty forgiving, this clay. You can use your finger. You could use the back of the knife. You could use a little tool to move it like that, or you can just roll it. Continue to roll it with some real soft pressure.
So Leila, did you hear?
What time is that? Okay, let's talk about the cane with the 4. You could leave this just like this, but I always like to end up with either a complete, this is just me, but I mean, anything goes, really. It's whatever you want the shape to be. I tend to like mine to be either square, rectangle, or round with like an outer layer. So what I would do with this then is make more snakes for each groove and fill those divots, right? It's a flower now. It'll still have that shape. If I use a different color of clay in each of the grooves, it just adds more of a design. If I were to add more of the same color, then it comes away from being a green flower and it may end up being like a green base with the inside spirals actually being the design. Does that make sense? So I'm going to add a little bit here and show you what I do, because I may end up wanting to make this round. I don't know yet. I'm gonna just play and see what I like. And you can do that too. If you want to add some snakes to the outer edges and fill those divots up. Let's see what color. And then once we do that, I want to do another cane, another style that's a different technique, but so fun. Any questions so far about anything, or anything that you're finding that's difficult, or something you've discovered already? Or
I made mine round. I mean, I didn't not on purpose. It just is.
It's round.
Cinder.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yes, of course that's okay.
Right.
Do you like it that way?
Yeah, yes, I do.
Okay. So if you want to, Jerry, you can, have you trimmed the edge, the two ends off already?
Yes.
And are you happy with the way the design looks?
I like it.
Okay. That's good. Well, if you want to, if you're finished with that one, you could start by making some more snakes.
Okay, great.
Yeah, for the next one that we'll do.
Yeah, I tried mine out, and because I pressed everything equally around the middle, the middle shape is like a square. It's a perfect square, not like a round snake in the middle. Like,
oh yeah, beautiful.
Completely square.
I want to see that.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that is cool.
Isn't that beautiful?
Great.
So if you used that same technique with more clay, you'd have a longer cane, and you could, if you wanted to, cut that piece. If you reduced it and kept reducing it, if you had more clay, more mass, you could cut that into 3 or 4 pieces, open them up and put them together, and have a more complex cane with those designs all the way around. You can go as far as you want with it. That's what's so cool. You can
Yeah.
go as far or as close as you want to get the effect that you like.
Definitely.
Okay, so I've added some light pink snakes to the grooves here, and I'm going to trim off. I always trim as I add, and then I trim because I want to be able to see the true design by trimming, and I don't want to mix those little pieces at the end with other colors coming in. So here's looks a little Asian to me.
Oh, cool.
But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just use the same color of pink, and I'm going to make a sheet of the pink, and I'm going to cover the whole thing on the outside with pink. And this clay, oh, I wanted to tell you this. So I did, when I ordered some of the Polymer clay online, I took a chance and I ordered some Polymer clay from Amazon that wasn't a brand name. I don't even remember. It just said Polymer clay, and it ended up being pretty soft, like almost too soft. So I learned that I needed to put it in the fridge before I worked with it, because it really already was conditioned. And if it's too soft, you can't keep it consistent. What reminded me of that is that this is one of them, and it's very soft already. So I barely have to do anything to it. But you can always put it in the fridge for a little bit of time. Some of the canes end up looking like candy, so you have to tell your family not to try to eat them. Anybody, can you hear my bird?
Yes.
That's my pet dove.
Okay.
I have a dove, and I've had him since he was a baby, and he flew into our yard in a windstorm, and he's 13 years old.
Oh, wow.
And he's super tame, and he's really mad that he's not out of his cage right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so I made a thin piece of the pink, the same color as my snakes on the outside. And I'm gonna, well, I can tell already that it's not wide enough to go around the whole thing. So I'm gonna have to keep rolling. See what I mean? If I roll it right now, it's not gonna fit. There'll be a gap. So I gotta make it a little bit thinner. And oftentimes I will just use my fingers to pinch and pull, like really a small little soft pinch to spread and make that a bigger piece, my desired piece. And you can tell by when you're pinching, you can feel the thickness. I like to manipulate the clay that way. It's very relaxing to me. Sometimes that's easier than trying to just roll it out too. Just another technique. Okay. See if that'll work. Okay, so you probably already get the principle of it, but I'm going to show you what I want to do anyway. Here's my flat piece. I'm going to put my cane that I'm going to cover with the designs facing outward. And I'm going to trim to that where the design ends. Do you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let me get those off of there. Okay, I'm just going to hold that blade up to the edge of the cane, and I'm going to slice. The dough is a little soft. The clay is a little soft, so it's sticking to the blade. But I'm going to do the same thing on the other side here. Just right up flush to the cane itself and slice off that excess. And then I'm going to take that edge and pull it up and over. And there still are some little indentations in that cane. So once I get it rolled up, I'm going to take my finger and press into those divots again, just to make sure that there's no air bubbles. And you see here, there's a little gap, and it's not a big deal because this clay is pretty stretchy, and you can just use your finger to join that color. Just pinch and pull gently and close up that gap. Okay, so you can see the little holes. Still, there's some air bubbles in there. And I'm going to take a little tool, a little round tool, and I'm going to just kind of press in there. To try to get some of those air bubbles out. Okay, let's see what time it is. And then again, I'm just going to pinch and reduce a tiny bit. Jen, are you guys making more snakes? Make more snakes for the next one. The next one's a different technique. It's really fun. So I'm just pinching and reducing a tiny bit, working from the inside out. And when I get it to my desired thickness, I'm going to roll it just a little bit gently. And I can put it on the end like this and just press down very gently. And roll again. Okay, here's the big reveal. I'm going to cut this cane in half, and you'll see how the color filled it in? Beautiful. It just makes a thick border. If I'd have used a different color, it'd look different, right? But I kind of like it sometimes with that thicker color border. So I'll probably end up putting these in the fridge because it's a little too soft for me to slice into a bead. Okay, so we're making more snakes, right? Let's cut this one. Well, I'll cut this red one too. This was the triple one. I'm going to cut it in half. This was so that was the 3 snakes because Jenna's daughter had 3 pieces, not 4. And it turns out like that. And then you can continue to build that. You could put these together and cut those in half. You know what it reminds me of? I'm going to age myself. There used to be a Clairol commercial, and it was the and so on, and the picture of the girl would just keep multiplying. So now there's 4. It's the triple cane with 4. And to continue to make that, I'd put another piece in the middle, and I'd fill in these grooves with either the same color or a different color and continue to build on that. Okay. I have some scraps here. I'm going to show you what a lot of people do with their scraps. They call it a Natasha bead. And it's just such a cool thing to do because you have no idea what it's going to turn out like. It's like a big surprise, and it's so fun for kids. So I have all these little pieces of scrap here, different colors, the ends trim, a little leftover snake, just different colors, this scrap. So to make a Natasha bead, you can take any scraps you want like this, and you just put them together and squeeze. and
I
squeeze
think the
again.
phone went to sleep
Uh-oh.
or something because
Oh, hold on.
it's okay.
I can't see you.
Are you
I
there?
don't- No, I can't.
Yep,
Oh,
now
it's back.
Yeah,
Okay.
just the phone went to sleep, I think.
Can everybody see?
Yes.
Okay, so just gonna squeeze and smash and roll and squeeze, fold and squeeze. It really is however you want to do it. You can squeeze it, you can stretch it, and mix it up like that. So it doesn't look like anything, just a bunch of different colors, right? And then you roll it. I like to roll mine to about 2 or 3 inches. And then you twist,
Yes.
hold one end still and twist the other end. See how that's changing colors?
Yes, how cool.
Okay, so now I'm going to fold it in half like that, pinch it and roll again
That's how people do
to
it.
about 3 inches and do the same thing. Twist. And fold in half one more time. Like that. And then sometimes I like to even twist that piece a little bit, like a pretzel. And then roll it. Don't roll it too much because you want it to be thick enough. We're going to cut it lengthwise like this. So you want to be thick enough to cut lengthwise. Okay, so rolled it. And then take the ends and just push it in to like to itself. So it's the opposite of reducing. You're going to make it fat again. And I just use a little bit of pressure on the end, pinch and push, pinch and push. Okay, so my shape looks a little bit like a caterpillar, and that's okay. But I want to take the top down a little bit because when we slice it, I want it to be a little bit more uniform in the thickness. So I just took it and I pressed down on the top that was kind of pointy, and it looks like this. It doesn't look like much. But when you take your blade and you cut it lengthwise, so you want to try to get it right down the middle and slice it lengthwise straight down. When you open it up and kind of line it up end to end, you've got a pretty wild design on the inside.
Oh.
And they call that a Natasha bead. I don't know what other people do with them, but I end up, sometimes I make them into a pendant. When you flatten it out a little bit, you can see the design a little bit better. It's a fun way to use up your scraps. Another thing that you can do with that cool piece is if you had another piece of just a plain scrap, if you want to make a ball. Maybe a little bit bigger piece. Make a ball. I would make this, it's pretty thick. I'm going to thin it out a little bit. The design will stay. You can see that the design stays. And you can take that ball and wrap that piece of design around the ball. Like that. Just join the ends with your fingers, pinch and join. And then you can do two things. You could trim either edge to meet the inside of the ball so that it's flush, or you can just pinch the ends and close it around that ball. Pinch from both sides, kind of just join those edges and pinch. cover up the inside of the ball. And when it's almost a circle, then I take it and I just kind of gently roll it, really, really gently. And you've got a bead. So I'm going to flatten mine out a little bit. I like them kind of in a barrel shape. So I'm flattening the ends.
Oh, how neat.
And I'm going to make the hole right in the middle. I always make my holes before I bake them. Some people use a drill and they drill after. I like to make them before. It takes more time, but I just think, I don't know what it is. I don't want to use a drill. I'm not against power tools. I love power tools, but with the clay, I like to use my hands. So I'm going to use just this bead reamer, and I'm going to take it. I'm going to pull that down. So I typically put my bead, if it's got a flat edge, I'm going to set it down on the work mat, and I'm going to hold that bead reamer in the middle and make sure it's straight up and down and just press down through gently. Move it around a little bit, and usually it sticks, so I can just pick it up and I just twist it through. And I pay attention to how far I've gone up, because this is a tapered bead reamer, so I want both sides of the bead to be the same size hole, right? So I'm going to take that out gently, and I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to insert it on the other side and go through again to about the same depth. And then I'll know that that hole is the same size all the way through. So it's got a hole now. And I'll bake it that way. And I have some that are already baked. I'll show you. So these are some irregular shaped beads made with, some of them were made from Natasha beads. And they look like they're a barrel style bead, kind of like a old African trading bead. It's similar technique. And if you wanted to make a round one, there's the hole. Hole's the same size. That's important for stringing too, because you want to know what size your hole is. Okay, does everybody have more snakes?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, let's do this next one. It's really fun. We're gonna make a long, like a ribbon of our outside color. So choose which color you want to use on the outside. It'll be on the inside too, but it'll be the final outside color. It's a different technique to make a different kind of cane. So we need a ribbon, probably at least 7 inches long, 7 to 9 inches long, and maybe like an inch wide or so, give or take. And you can do that with your roller. You can do it with your hands if you want to, but I like the roller because it makes it a little bit more consistent. And the colors that we're gonna, so you've already made your snakes, right? So choose a complementary color to the snakes. If you've got a dark color of snake, use a light color of ribbon, the ribbon of clay, or at least a complementary color, because they're gonna end up working together. So this one clay that I've just chosen is pretty hard. So I'm going to do that little wiggle action with it. And it really does loosen it up quickly. something about the structure of it's basically plastic that we're working with. So when we bake this, when I bake this at home, I use my oven. I put my my exhaust fan on. I can smell it, but I can't smell it. It's not too strong. Some people, you know, are worried about that, and that's fine. I would say if you want to continue to work with it, maybe dedicate a little toaster oven to it and use that to bake it. You can bake the clay more than once. You can bake something and let it cool and add clay to it and bake again. Like if you made something and it turns, you take it out of the oven and you don't like the way it looks, you can add clay to it and bake it again, which is kind of cool. You can bake it like up to 6 times. Most of the clays that I work with bake at around 275. And they say, most of them say it's 15 minutes for a 1/4 inch thickness. So if I have a tray and I'm baking a bunch of different thicknesses, I just try to group the sizes together so that I bake for 15 minutes and take out the ones that are done and put the others back in for the required time. The bigger beads, I leave them in for like 30 minutes usually to make sure. Sometimes when you take the clay out of baking, it'll feel a little soft still. It takes a little bit of time to cure. So let it cool down completely before you think it isn't baked all the way through. Okay, do you have your ribbon ready? Ribbon of clay, or are you still working on it?
No.
I'm still working on mine. It's not quite ready.
Yeah, still
Oh, yours?
working on
Okay,
mine.
you're doing good. Yep. Looking good.
It's not an inch wide though.
That's okay. It's give or take. This is really just about, I mean, it'll still look cool. It's more the technique that I want to show you, but it'll still turn out. It doesn't have to be exact. Okay, my computer clock is off. What time do you guys have? Because I think we might need to turn on the oven.
235.
Yeah, let's take a minute and go turn on our ovens. If you're gonna bake today, let's turn on our ovens so that they can warm up. Put them at 275. I'm gonna do mine too. I'll be right back. Okay, and I want to show you a fun thing that I did this morning because I had the idea yesterday and I wanted to be able to show you different things that you can do when you slice the canes. So I bought little votive candles and I sliced a cane in a thin piece and I baked it and then I glued it onto the glass. So it's a little, like a little cute little votive candle with a really pretty little design on it.
Oh, cool.
And so it's curved, right? The glass is curved. And so what I did before I baked it was I made a foil circle and I draped the clay over the curve so that it baked with a curve in it so that I could put it flush on the candle. Does that make sense? When it was not baked, I laid it across the top so then when it baked, it would come out with a curve in the clay so that it would fit against the curve of the glass votive. Okay. See here.
Cool. Does our ribbon need to be symmetrical or can it be like wavy?
It can be, yeah, that's fine.
And then how big do you want the snakes? Are these like, I have no idea. Do you want long snakes like the same size or?
Well, we make this, you can make the snake long and then we'll cut it into segments. The
Okay.
width of the snake, of the width of the ribbon.
Oh, okay. So you want the snake to be, sorry, there's a lot of distractions over here. So
That's okay.
I'm missing a lot.
So the ribbon should be what as the snake?
So the ribbons, you start with the ribbon, right? And the width of the ribbon will end up being the width that you cut the snake. I'll show you.
Okay.
I'll show you. I'm just getting my ribbon ready. It's not cooperating.
Here is mine.
Okay.
Mine's not very wide.
Mine's not as long as I told you to make yours, but I'm going to show you how we do it so that you see the technique. So here's the ribbon, right? There's the ribbon. I'm going to use this color for my snake. And I'm going to just roll a consistent size snake. Okay, so I want to lay the snake flush to the edge of this ribbon, and then I'm just going to trim him at the other side. Like that. See? So all the pieces of this snake are going to be as wide as the ribbon. And I'm going to take this ribbon and I'm going to fold it over. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just going to fold it over like that. And then I'm going to flip it over. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side with another piece of snake. Lay it on top. Cut it to the width of the ribbon. And then flip it over. And do it again. Lay another piece of snake on top of there. And flip it over. So you're kind of doing like a figure 8 almost. And you just continue to do that with your snake. If you run out of snake and you need more snake, just roll some more. And continue to place the snake on the opposite side and fold over until all of your ribbon is gone. So it'll look something like this. And there's some gaps in there, and that's okay, because we're going to work those out. So I'm at the end of my ribbon, and I have a little bit left, but I don't really have enough to cover I don't have enough to cover another snake. So I'm going to just wrap that rest of that ribbon around to the other side. And mine looks like this. Yours will look something like this. You might be a different shape. It might be round. That part doesn't matter. But once you've gotten to that place, we're going to do the squeeze and reduce. Start in the middle, just gently squeeze from the middle out and reduce it to maybe, I don't, depending on the width of your ribbon. Mine was not very wide. I'll probably get maybe 2.5 inches. Maybe not. But you can see it's reducing already. And I'm working out all of the little spaces that were, all the little air spaces they're leaving. Mine's square right now, but it won't have to stay square. I can, if I want it to stay square, it can. It could be oval, it could be round, it could be a triangle. I'll show you, maybe I'll show you how to do the triangle part, because that's another part of the technique. When you're cutting a cane and you're opening it up and creating a design with more pieces, sometimes the triangle's a cool effect. So, okay, I've reduced mine as far as I'm going to go. Right now it's a rectangle. I'm going to put it down on my mat, and I want it to be straight. Like, I don't want it to be curved. I want it to be straight, right? And it's pretty consistent, the size. So I'm going to take just my finger and my forefinger, and I'm going to gently pinch just the top from one end to the other. And I'm going to just continue to do that a couple of times, pinch it gently. And before you know it, you're going to have a triangle. So you're pinching and pressing a little bit at the same time, because you want that bottom part of the cane to stay square, right? And just continue to push and pull and pinch at the top to make a peak. So here's the peak. Can you see it's a triangle? So once I've finished with my peak, I'm going to just flip it over to the next side and pinch and pull the next side of the triangle. And then when I've done that, I'm going to just flip it over to the third side and pinch and pull that peak to continue to reduce it and continue to make it a nice equal triangle. And you can see on the ends, it gets a little bit distorted, and that's normal, because we're going to trim those ends off. You can, another part of reducing too, once, especially with triangles, I like to kind of squeeze and pull, but I always start at the middle and I work my way out. You can flip it over and just kind of continue to do that until it's at your desired length. Okay. How you doing? Do you have a triangle? When you have your triangle, you know, some people like to cut their ends off first, but usually when I'm gonna cut a cane and make it into a different design, I don't always cut my trim off, because sometimes I just like to make sure that it's the design I want, and I don't trim it till the end. But it really is a matter of personal preference. So I've got a triangle. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to cut it in 4 pieces. So I'm going to cut it in half first, and then I'm going to cut those 2 pieces in half again. So I'll have 4 pieces. So straight down the middle, and then again, those 2 pieces in half. And then I'm going to place, so I've got the peak, right? And I'm going to look at the design. The design is a little different on each side. It almost looks like a, I think it looks like dragonfly wings, this kind of technique. And I'm going to make sure that the design lines up. So there's 2 pieces put together. I'm going to take another piece and make sure that the design lines up the way it's supposed to. See, if I don't line it up, look at, it's like a mistake in the design. Can you see that detail? So I want to make sure that the designs line up.
It doesn't look right.
Okay. So 4 pieces gives you something like that, right? And there's a big gap here. So what I do at that point is I just start squeezing gently and I close that gap. Just a little pressure, never a lot of pressure because you want to keep the integrity of the design, and you want to move it around so that each piece is getting the same pressure, and you're just going to close that gap. And you end up with a cane. That looks like that. So once I close the gap, I just kind of, I might pinch and press a little bit. I don't really want to reduce it more, but I want to just make sure that all the air bubbles are out and that all the pieces are touching each other of the clay so that they can bake together. And mine's round now. What? Where's the camera? There. Now, if you wanted to get really fancy with this, you could make your snakes first, and then you could make the bullseye cane out of the snakes, right? With more than one color, and then cut that bullseye cane in segments and use your ribbon, and you'd have more color, like it'd be the outline instead of just a 2-color one. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm going to just roll.
I've lost my color.
Okay. So everybody's oven's on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a piece, do you have a baking sheet with either a piece of, I like parchment paper myself. You can do it straight on the metal, but I don't know. The metal sometimes makes the clay more shiny than I want it to be. The parchment paper keeps it a little bit more matte because I don't always want it to be too shiny. Let's see. Oh yeah, look. What colors did you use, Jenna? It's hard for me to see your colors. What colors did you use?
Can I see?
Differently, but it's still pretty cool.
Oh yeah, that's big size. Good size one.
Something different, but I like it.
Yeah, very cool.
How thin can it be for the oven? Is there like a certain thickness that, because this is so thick that I'm thinking of slicing it and making more, but I don't know how. We're probably gonna talk about that.
So I have baked things that are, you know, almost an inch thick, but what the rule is 15 minutes for every 1/4 inch thickness.
2 minutes. Okay.
But yeah, I wouldn't leave it in for an hour. I would leave it in for like maybe 30 minutes and then pull it out and let it cool and test it.
So you can do something that's just a 1/4 inch thick and that's fine, or even less.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
you can. Like with this cane, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to slice it into a bead. And then I'm going to put a hole in it and I'll show you the thickness of it. So that's not quite a quarter, maybe it's a 1/4 of an inch or a little shy of a 1/4 of an inch. I don't know why the camera's not showing it. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to put a hole in it, if you want to put the hole in lengthwise, then it has to be thick enough for you to get a hole through it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you could put a hole like through the top of it, and then you'd have to add a wire or a jump ring to it, and it'd be more of a component, not a bead. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So I made the hole at the top of that one. I'm going to slice another bead. The big thing about slicing is really that, number one, it's not too soft so that you don't mar the design. If it is too soft, that's why trimming off the ends at the end is good, because it gives you an indicator of how soft the clay is. Because you know you're going to get rid of the ends anyway. So it doesn't matter if the ends integrity don't stay in place. But you also want to slice, when you're slicing, you want to make sure you're on top of that blade so that you really are going straight up and down. Otherwise, you're going to have a bead that's different thickness. So I'm going to put a hole into this bead lengthwise, and it is kind of painstaking. I need my glasses for sure. I need my glasses, and I'm going to choose where I want to put the hole, because you know, if I put the hole at a really pretty part of the bead, then that bead's going to get covered up because another bead's going to be beside it. So if there's a pretty side of the bead that you want to show, don't put your hole on that side. Put it in a not interesting part of the bead so that all the interesting parts show. I usually hold my beads when I do the bead reamer, and I just hold it, I hold the bead perpendicular to what I can see to make sure that the bead reamer is going straight through. And I go really slow until I see it come out the other end, like that. And then I wiggle it out and I flip the bead over and I do it from the other side as well. It's really slow to make sure you're in the same bead hole and to the same thickness. And I always twist as I go, because I just always twist. I think it makes a difference. So that's going to be a bead. It's got the hole there and the hole there. And then this one has the hole at the top here, more like that. You could use it with a jump ring or with a piece of wire. Okay, so now's the time to slice and put a hole in, because we need to put them in the oven. I want to show you one more thing too. Let's see. Okay, this bead was just a ball of like scrap clay, and I made a circle, and then I took one of my bullseye canes that I had made, and I sliced it thin, and I placed those slices on the bead in random, kind of like a random order, and it gave it a 3-dimensional effect. So you can do that too. If you take some time to make a series of canes that you just don't cut, then when you come back to your table, you can use those canes to add to other things. They're like little accessories. This was just a flat piece of clay that I built up with a bunch of different slices of different canes. And then I made the holes at the top and I just put little jump rings in. I'm gonna make it into a necklace. So it's 3-dimensional. It's not flat, but you just kind of build it up to make the design that you like with all your different canes. I call it the cane library. Okay, and you see, take a look at this green and blue, these 3 pieces here. Those were just a simple spiral cane, and I cut it in half, and I just left it, I put those 2 pieces together and left it that way, and that's how I used it. So you don't always have to cover it with another color, or you don't always have to do that. Sometimes you can just cut it and put them side by side, and that's the way you like it. Okay, let's see. Have you guys done the holes yet? Have you tried that?
Yes.
How'd it work?
Great.
Okay, good. So sometimes when I do the holes, I notice that there's a little piece of clay that'll come out, or I just use my finger to smooth it over, but you can always use a piece of fine sandpaper after it's been baked to smooth off any rough edges if you want to. So once they have their holes, or you're ready to bake them, you can put them on your baking sheet. And as you can see, I've got the big thick bead with the smaller beads, and that's okay. I'll put it on for 15 minutes. I'll take these out and I'll put that one back in for another 15 or 20 minutes.
Know if they're done.
Okay, well, you really do follow that 15-minute per quarter inch. That's your best guideline. But I've had things come out of the oven, and I never am patient enough to wait till they're completely cool. So I always touch them. And sometimes they're a little buoyant, almost a little soft. They're hard, but soft, like they have a little give. That's why it's important to let them cool all the way down, because it's almost like they continue to cure as they cool down. So I always wait till they're completely cool, and then I'll take a bead and I'll kind of just give it a little squeeze. And if it's got give, then I put it back in. Always in 15-minute increments, and always in a preheated oven, because something happens to the integrity of the clay if you don't get it up to temperature before you actually put it in. Kind of like cookies. You just want the oven to be the right temperature. Okay. One more thing I want to show you that'll give you just another option. If you want to make, if you have a cane that you love the design of, but you don't want one of those flat disc beads, you can take a piece of, just any piece of clay. Usually it's going to get covered up, so it doesn't really matter what color it is. Make a circle, right? You've got the base for the clay, or base for the beads, sorry. And then I slice off a very, very thin, as thin as I can slice it, piece of cane. And I might pinch it just a little bit to make it a little bit more thin. And I'm looking at the ball that I made of the clay, and the the part that I want to be on the outside, my ball's a little bit too big. So I'm going to take a little bit of that away and make a smaller base for the bead. That looks better. I'm just going to put that right in the middle like that. And I'm going to work with my fingers to pull and kind of pull and soften that clay around that circle. And it covers about half. See that? So I'm gonna slice another piece, same thickness. Straight up and down. Give it a little bit of a pinch and pull. And then I'm gonna line up the design. I've got a big piece of yellow right there, so I wanna line that up. And that'll probably be where I put my hole. And then just join those edges, kind of shaping as you go. Join those edges. And then just give it a real small, gentle rolling motion. And then you've got a round bead out of that cane. And you can also make, you can make an oval bead too. That's a fun shape too. It just depends on how you want it to be. You just have to make the hole in it, and you can bake that too. I always like to put the beads down on the surface, and then I can really see where the drill tool is going. Make sure it's straight up and down. Any questions about anything?
No, but this was great.
So we covered three kinds of canes, right? We did the basic bullseye cane that can be a base for anything, right? We did, what was the next one? We did the spiral cane that you can cut and reduce as many times as you want for that design, and multiply that design. We did the bullseye that had 3 pieces, right? Jenna had 3 pieces left, so it was just 3, and then I cut it and made it into 4. But the individual cane just has 3 pieces, not 4. And I kind of like to call this one the dragonfly wing. So make sure when you are baking, I always like to fill up my tray before I bake, if I can, just to be more efficient. But make sure I usually don't smell anything until I open the oven and pull it out. That's when I turn on my fan, because I really don't smell anything until it comes out of the oven. And it's not super strong, but it's still probably a good idea to get your exhaust fan on. And I just put them right on top of the oven and let them cool. And I use the parchment paper that I've got on my baking sheet. I've used the piece that's on there probably 20 times. You can just continually use that. Foil would have the same effect as the baking sheet. It would create kind of more shine. If you like that, then don't use parchment paper. But I like my beads to be a little bit more matte. What colors, Jerry, what colors did you choose to get for your clay?
Oh, I bought this off Amazon and I got a million colors.
That's so fun.
Yeah, it
Oh
was
my
really-
goodness, yeah.
probably that clay you were talking about. It's no brand. It's just, and it might be a bit soft, but it's really fun.
Good, good. But you can always put it in the fridge. That really helps. Yeah, especially if you're going to slice that clay. I always put that in the fridge because I just want the integrity of the design to stay the same as you slice it. One other thing I want to tell you too, if you buy clay that has glitter in it, like I've got some clay that has big chunks of glitter and I love the way it looks, but those bigger chunks can actually mar the clay design as you slice it. So just be aware of that. The glitter clay I used earlier is not like that because it's very, very fine glitter. But this clay, it's Sculpey, I think. It has really big pieces. And so it's a little more rustic when you use it in your design. It's beautiful, but it's just more rustic. It doesn't give you such a clean slice when you're slicing it. Does that make sense? Because you don't really cut the glitter. These pieces don't really cut. They just kind of follow themselves out of the clay, if that makes sense. When you're slicing it, and if you've got a piece of glitter in the middle of your slice, it's just going to either go to one side or another. It's not going to cut in half. It's pretty strong stuff. It's like Mylar or something. But that's good to know. Any other questions? Observations? What do you think?
It was very fun.
Yeah, it's very good. I'll show you my tray with them lined up.
Oh, how cool.
Yeah. Okay, wait, can you hold up one of the pieces of the last cane that we did, like this one? I want to see what yours turned out like.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Great.
very pretty.
Yeah, it's like a
What do you think?
blue.
Did you make beads out of yours, James?
Yeah,
Or what
I
did you? Yeah, okay.
And one of them I did what you did with the circle, like a kind of like a sphere, like a ball.
Oh,
one.
right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, good. Okay.
Yeah. It's right.
And Jenna, your colors were, for the last one we did you do blue and white too? Was it, or blue and?
I don't know.
Oh yeah, so fun.
I think I did something different, but
That's okay.
it's fun.
Yeah, I wonder if it just has to do with the way you folded the ribbon. It may just be that you folded the ribbon a different way.
Yeah, I think I made like when I was doing the triangle thing, I like actually made a triangle instead of like it being a roll.
Got you. Okay. Oh, that's cool too.
That's what I think happened. And then I just like experimented. Yeah. Thank you. I have a quick question if you,
yes.
I think it's just because, and it's fine because I like the organicness.
Yes.
But I have a cheap clay too, and I have like the knife. I put it in the fridge, but like I have the circle, but when I cut it, it just gets so smashed. Is that just because it's cheap and I don't have like the right tools? Or is that something normally?
I think is it very cold? Like,
I could probably put it back in maybe.
I think that's one of the factors. The other factor is the tissue blade really makes a difference. So it's probably the thickness of your knife. Okay. So even if you had like a razor blade.
Oh, okay. I do somewhere.
That's what this is. It's just a long razor blade.
Okay.
If you have one, try that.
Okay.
Because that gives a cleaner cut.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So put your things when you're ready, put them in the oven 15 minutes for every 1/4 of an inch. Most of the clay says that on the back of the directions anyway, but I'd love to see pictures. I want to tell you a couple really inspired me. Totally designs than what I do, but they're so cool. They're on Instagram. One of them is Rongolian Etsy, RONGOLIAN. Etsy, and it's all one word. And then there are some tutorials. I don't really watch tutorials because I really like to learn as I go, like as I do my own thing. But there are some good teachers out there. And one of the gals that I really like is named Gemma. If you search YouTube for Gemma, I'm sure she'll come up. She's got kind of, I think she's from Britain, and you only see her hands, but she's such a great slow explainer. She's about the only one I watch more than once. Most of them I watch for a couple minutes. I'm like, I think I want to do my own thing. But I really like her, Gemma. And what else? Crespi. I think it's C Crespi, CCrespi. And I'm going to there's one that I can't remember her name, but there's one gal that I follow that actually does canes that are portraits. It is unreal. She builds the canes in a way that I don't think I could ever do, but she actually, when you slice it, there's a portrait of a person in the cane. They're amazing. I'm going to look her up right now because she's worth looking at.
Fun. And it came out really cool.
Let me see. Wait. Oh yeah.
Very nice.
That's really cool.
If there are air bubbles, that's just because we're so new. It just, it'll still work, but it's gonna be like, you'll see it in the feed.
Yes, but what it can do is it can hurt the integrity of the strength of the clay. So it's better if you can pinch and pull and reduce until there aren't any. Or if you want to slice it and try to like kind of pinch it together after you slice it.
Okay.
That too, but it'll hurt the strength of the clay.
Okay, so we can save that now by dealing with it before we bake it. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Where's my lady? I really want to tell you about this lady. Oh, okay, maybe it's here. I think she's from Russia. Oh, okay, the Crespi, it's C-R-A-E, like cray, C-R-A-E-C-R-E-S-P-I, Cray Crespi. And the other lady, okay, it's Sacra _ Argia, S-A-C-R-A _ A-R-G-I-L-L-A. That's the lady that does the portraits. I mean, her work is unreal, but I love to just be inspired by those people. And I do very different work than them, but it's still really cool to see what can be done. Because, you know, in 5 years, I might want to change what I do and do something different. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you feel like you learned. And I hope you feel successful with what you made.
Well, thank you very much.
Very good.
You're welcome. So nice to have you guys. And if you have any questions about anything, you're always free to call me or email me or find me on, I mean, you could get my number through the Carp Art Center. If there's any questions or something comes up that you want to talk about, feel free to do that.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Ciao.
Thank you. See ya.
Bye.
Have a good day.
It was fun. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you. Bye.